it's Mark from Team Primetime. And wait, I know exactly what you're thinking. What are these like white cards in my deck? Do you spot Hallowed Fountains? It's like, where's my Watery Graves? All right, well, everybody calm down. I want to try something new. Blue White Control is obviously the top tier control deck in the Pioneer format, and I thought it's only fair that I showcase that. And Nolan ran a league, and I just wanted to. I want to be the channel's control player, especially while Dougie's out. And, I had to run against him. I had to see how I did. He posted a 3-2, and I wanted to see if I could possibly do better. But my list is significantly different than his. And I really wanted to showcase some different cards. So, like, two of my favorite control players are, like, Claudio and George Jabber. You could follow them both on Twitch and Twitter. George has been doing this cool thing with Narset Parter Veils and Days Undoing for like the last couple weeks, and I was like, yeah, sweet, totally about that. Let's throw that in the deck and see if it works. And I really like the Kitty Cat sideboard plan with you have Kaheera the Orphanguard, and sometimes you just board it out because you have to bring in creatures that aren't in cats, elementals, dinosaurs, or beasts. I think Nightmare, Nightmare is the last type. But then you get, cards like Brimaz, King of Oreskos, which is a really cool grindy threat, and Regal Caracal puts 3 bodies into play at one time, and I'm pretty much about that. So, besides that, the sideboard is pretty much normal blue-white control stuff that you'd expect to see. Handful of counterspells, rest in peace. Divine Smite is a card that a lot of decks have been playing. It comes up against Rakdos, and maybe sometimes you'll find some other shells where you can play it against, but it's cool. I want to try it. I had never cast Elspeth's Son's Champion in my life, so I was like, sure, throw it in, it'll be a cool time. Otherwise, the main deck is basically everything you'd expect. I'm doing a little bit of a 2-2-2 split with Change the Equation, make disappear in Dovin's Veto. Besides that, we're just going to run it and see how it goes. And, as always, like, comment, subscribe, throw me some feedback if you're interested, and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and we'd love to interact with y'all. So I'll see y'all in round 1. So my last control video was like a million years long, so I'm gonna try this new thing where I play the league and then voice record over it, like talking back. Maybe we could talk about plays I made in retrospect, and I think that'd be more interesting than me just filling time talking about random stuff. So if you like that, definitely let me know. Let's check out round 1. Okay, so I lose the die roll, I reveal Kaheera. Okay, so my opponent shows me a Castle Lockthwain, so I'm definitely against Rakdos. This is kind of a bad keep on the draw, since I have 2 counter spells. Normally you'd want like more answers to what you see here. I'm getting Thoughtseize out of my Dovin's Veto, so don't have an answer to this Liliana of the Veil. Kind of a stinker, but I have a lot of lands in hand, so I have some easy things to discard. Okay, still kind of flooding out here, which definitely stinks. But definitely cards I can discard. I have a second Field of Ruin, so I have a clear answer to this Mutavault. Fable, easy counter with the Absorb. Because if I let that resolve, then I really don't have a lot else going for me. My opponent has not played a creature yet, so this Laydown Arms is really just rotting in my hand. But based on the hand I had, starting with Laydown Arms, my opponent has just put together like the perfect the perfect set of draws to just not matter about my hand. Rakdos not having any creatures in the start just was bad for me, and then drawing into more lands, definitely not very good. Put Kaheera in my hand just to have more fodder to discard, but then just more discard, more discard. It's very unlikely that I'm going to be able to come back from this point, so I concede. Let's see how game 2 goes. Round 1 definitely did not go very well, but man, no, going Thoughtseize, take my stuff, and flooding out, just against the Liliana of the Veil. Blue-white control already normally does not have good answers to a resolved Planeswalker, so definitely a stinker. And then my opponent having the Reckoner Bankbuster to kind of break even on them having to also discard, it's definitely a good spot for them to be in. Okay, so we have game 2. I obviously win the die roll here, so we're going to take a shot at it on a keep. Normally you'd want a few more counter spells, but I think with my land to spell ratio, I'm pretty good to keep this hand here. And my lands also line up really well. Let's see how we're doing. My opponent goes double man land and a Bank Buster, and I guess not having the 2-mana counter spell for the Bank Buster kind of a big stinker. You know, I guess I shocked this here because the 2 damage doesn't really matter that much. So I'm just going to cycle this Shark Typhoon so I can get any value out of it whatsoever. So I get a 1/1, and then I draw into another Shark Typhoon, which stinks. But my opponent takes the Teferi, which I guess I can feel good about that. Okay, drawing Narset there is very good. Definitely a card that can generate me some kind of card advantage. I feel good about. So my opponent's starting this cycle of drawing with the Bank Buster, but I can't have my opponent doing that. So I'm just going to go ahead and exile it. Graveyard Trespasser, not exactly what you want to see, but I am holding the Supreme Verdict, which a 4-mana answer for a 3-mana threat, not exactly where you want to be. Drawing Elspeth Sun's Champion feels cool. I have the lands in hand that I can eventually cast it, so I like that. It does kind of stink to have double 6-drop there, though, because then I kind of have to decide, do I slam Shark Typhoon or do I slam Elspeth Sun's Champion? Well, now my opponent has put a Shield into play, but I'm at 18 life, so I don't really care that much because I have a lot of time, and so I can just jam Elspeth, start making 3/3s. Not making 3/3s, make 3 1/1s. My opponent hasn't done anything yet, so I'm good to just keep everything here. My opponent has the Noxious Grass, though, which is a really good answer, and then Thoughtseize is my Shark Typhoon. That's a pretty brutal sequence of plays there for me to deal with. And then my opponent goes Blood Tithe Harvester, so I'm definitely on the back foot here. I'm going to scry here because I need to hit a Plains so that I can lay down arms my opponent's Shieldred. So I'm at 14. My opponent's going to go back up to 21. I have no cards in hand. My opponent's going to have 3. So as the control player, you never want the mid-range player to have more cards in hand than you. That's an awful spot to be in. And now my opponent resolves Fable the Mirror Breaker. And now I'm going to start taking beats. I'll probably double block here because I want to trade. Stone Raining my opponent to some degree felt better than blocking the Blood Tithe Harvester. So that's why I made that one there. Top decking the counter spell feels terrible. That's why a lot of the times you'll cut a few counter spells post board. But no, I just have nothing here, and then I'm just gonna ask my opponent to tap out. That's the best I can do, and then I can scry with Castle Vantress to hope I hit something good. Teferi is the start of what I would call something good. But this is a weird spot here. So I'm gonna jam this Teferi. But if we look at the board, right? So my opponent has everything they need to activate the Hive of the Eye Tyrant. And so I'm at 6. My opponent, this Fable is going to flip. So they're going to have the 4 they need to clear the Bank Buster. So I'm looking at 3, 6, plus 4 is 10. So like if you look at it a lot of ways, so I can play this Teferi. I can't plus it. There's nothing I can really hit that's going to bail me out here. So in my head, I think when I play this, I'm going to tuck. But no matter what I tuck, it doesn't matter. Because my opponent can come at me with the damage anyway. So we're just going to see the play I make here. I'm pretty sure... Oh, I draw. Okay, well, I guess it doesn't matter. Yeah. I was thinking in my head I would try to tuck something and hope my opponent would just misplay greatly. But no, my opponent has everything wrapped up, and there's nothing I can do about this one. I guess when I play things this way, it does not show like how I sideboarded against Rakdos. My normal cuts are, so I took out probably a couple of the counter spells. I think I took out at least one of the Make Disappears. I'm pretty sure I cut the Days Undoing because you're never going to put both of them together, but I left the Narsets, at least 2 of them, just because they are card advantage, and then I bring in more Haymakers, things like Elspeth Sun's Champion, which is a good top deck, and I bring in the Cats, and that's where I was with the sideboard. Obviously, the draws I faced in both these games are pretty brutal. So I don't know. We're down 0-1. Well, let's just see how well we can come back through the last 4 matches in this league. All right, so we're here with round 2. Round 1 was bad, but I am here on the play, and oh no, I'm on the draw. Never mind, I'm on the draw. But I have really good answers here. I have Supreme Verdict. I have March of Otherworldly Light. The lands in hand I think are good, and I'm seeing my opponent starting off on this red-white Convoke deck, which I have not seen a whole lot. But my opponent going turn 1 Thraven Inspector, turn 2 Gleeful Demolition, and I just look at how I'm about to get waylaid by all these creatures. So I just know I have to get to the Supreme Verdict or I'm going to lose. So we'll just see how the game moves forward. So I think my logical play on this turn is just going to be to March of Otherworldly Light, some random 1-drop. Okay, this is awesome for me because this is a turn that my opponent is not attacking me. But I'll go ahead and deal with this Legion Loyalist. If I draw Shark Typhoon, I wouldn't be able to block with it if their Legion Loyalist is in play. So Shark Typhoon, so playing ahead towards drawing the Shark Typhoon was exactly what I wanted to do there. So I'm going to cycle here. I'm going to chump block this Venerated Loxodon. And my opponent's down to 2 cards in hand. So I already feel like I have a path forward to winning this game because my opponent just went through turn 4 and only has 2 lands in play. And I have Narset and Wandering Emperor, so I definitely can't be mad about my spot here. My opponent found their 3rd land off the Cycle of the Blood. I'm just going to hold up Wandering Emperor. I am playing around my opponent having a removal spell for the 2-drop there. Not the 2-drop, the 2/2. So instead of chumping, I just moved to exile it. That seemed like the better play for me there. Then my opponent conceded because I have a Wandering Emperor in play, and they only have 3 lands, 2 cards. Probably a bad spot for that deck. So game 1, perfect. Let's talk about sideboard for this. They're putting creatures into play and going wide. So I think, okay, how can I also similarly go wide or stop them from doing that? So Regal Caracal and Brimaz are great cards to bring in. And I also have 2 copies of Temporary Lockdown, so those come in as well. Cards to take out. This is not a Narset Days Undoing match, I would think. So I'm pretty sure I did not leave those in. But I definitely took out the slow things. I think I would probably cut a Shark Typhoon, cut a Teferi Hero of Dominaria, maybe even 2 of them. And like cutting like Absorbs. Absorbs are too slow. So let's see how the game played through that. Okay, game 2. I'm going to draw again. Okay, so I have the Caracal and the Lockdown. I know I have all the lands I need to cast this Lockdown, which is an awesome place to be. But I also have Lay Down Arms and March of Otherworldly Light. This is... I couldn't sculpt a better opening hand against this deck. And my opponent's going super wide here. I know my opponent can flip this Legion's Landing next turn. So I probably pitch something to my March of Otherworldly Light. And the Caracal is probably the correct choice there. Just to stop the Legion's Landing from flipping. Because if that gets going, I really don't have a good answer to that on my board. And my opponent just continuing to put things into play just makes my Temporary Lockdown even better here. So my opponent, once again, going into their turn 4, only has 2 lands, but makes their 3rd drop. They have another Legion's Landing. Hate that for me. And then Surges a Bushwhacker. So I guess I didn't expect to see something like Reckless Bushwhacker in this deck. But, man, I have a great Cycle of Shark Typhoon to trade for the Bushwhacker here. Love that. And then, my opponent not having the 3rd creature to flip this Legion's Landing is also a major break for me. And I can't overstate how good that was for me. My opponent burning trees into Thraven Inspector. Okay. And they use the 2 to... Okay, so we're convoking into a Loxodon. I have 1, 2, 3 planes, so I need the Memory Deluge. So let me tell you about my thought process here. My thought process was I needed 4th planes because I wanted to be able to lay down arms the Venerated Loxodon, but I didn't remember in the moment that Venerated Loxodon is actually a 5/5, so we're still a pretty decent ways away. So I took temporary lockdown there to clean up a lot of stuff, and I can still chump this Loxodon for a turn. So I think I'm still in a good spot. None of the other cards that were in that pile for Memory Deluge were very good anyway. So I'm going to go for the lockdown, and then I'm just going to cycle this shark and chump for another turn. You know, getting my life total down to 7 so quick, definitely good for them, but when your control opponent is getting to turn like 8 and already has something, like that's a pretty good spot to be. And now I get the benefit of I could stall them out with Hall of Storm Giants, but Brimaz allows me to block, and I could lose the Brimaz in the trade if they wanted to attack, but they don't even attack. So I'm going to go ahead and field the Den of the Bugbear just so there's one less thing I have to think about. That gives me my 5th planes to deal with the Loxodons. Now I'm just attacking, and I'm holding Make Disappear and Absorb in my hand. So my opponent is definitely dead at this point. This is garbage time, man. Like, this feels awesome. This is probably the most I've ever really gotten to go off with Brimaz, I think, in practice. So this is just like fun to, like, I don't know. As a control player, I know nobody really wants to watch garbage time, but just like knowing that the world is my oyster, this is just kind of fun for me. So the game ends pretty shortly after this. I would have to imagine, like, if I'm my opponent, yeah, you when you just have nothing going for you and your control opponent lands Teferi Hero of Dominaria, definitely a good time to scoop. So high EV there, and I appreciate that. So we're 1-1. Let's definitely see if we can continue this uptick after that downtick in round 3, and I'll see you there. All right, so we're in the 1-1 bracket. Let's see how this blue-white Days Undoing Kaheera deck does in round 3. So I win the die roll. Sweet. I reveal Kaheera. My opponent reveals Gigantha. I have 3 lands, but I have 2 absorbs and not the 3rd colored source of mana that I need for them, which kind of stinks. I don't normally know what Gigantha means because a lot of decks can board Gigantha. Drawing the Change the Equation here is awesome for me. Seeing all these colors, I should naturally assume my opponent's on Bring to Light. So here I draw the Plains for turn, which is the perfect feels good moment. So I can counter the Caryatid, counter the Fable, and now I still have Absorb up, and I just keep moving forward. Draw Supreme Verdict, and not a match where I'll probably normally get to use it. I might have to find a spot where my opponent is trying to put a bunch of creatures into play, and I can get some benefit out of that. I missed my land drop here. Definitely not where you want to be, and my opponent makes their 5th one. But I have the Absorb here to counter Gigantha. I probably had some consideration to just save and wait to use my Supreme Verdict here, but you know, I decided at some point my opponent's going to have to start committing to the board, so I just put Kaheera into hand. My opponent puts Elishnorn into play. So now I see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Not quite the mana I need to lay down arms, so my opponent here casts an Escape to the Wilds. Gonna generate a lot of stuff. My opponent has a Hostage Taker, Leyline Binding, a Valky, so there's a lot of things that I want to eventually do here. I kind of put the Kaheera into play just to bait my opponent's Valky, but my opponent changed to the rocks here. There could be, if my opponent just puts so much into the board, I have the 6 mana here to cast this Farewell. Which is, okay, so now my opponent completely whiffs. Valky has nothing. My opponent's not going to be able to use any of those cards anymore, so now this is the perfect opportunity for me to just Farewell. So I get my Kaheera back. I don't really know where my opponent wants to go from here. Omnath, great draw, great play from my opponent there. Going to gain some life. Going to generate some mana. And your opponent cycling off their mana generated, I think you feel pretty good about that. My opponent, once again, has a Chain to the Rocks here. But I have the 4 planes and can lay down arms to Omnath. So I'm not really worried about that long term. Caryatid, not the end of my world here. So I can start making 1/1s with Castle Ardenvale. So we have a win condition, we have a path forward. The trick is, can I cycle through it and click fast enough when my opponent's already at 23? This matchup's going to be grindy. It's going to take a lot of time off the clock, so I have to do well. Putting Teferi Hero of Dominaria on top is a great start. So now I just start drawing and trying to find more cards. I have an Irrigated Farmland. I can just cycle this. It's probably what I will end up doing here. Actually, I'm going to scry. So I'm pretty sure I put both cards on bottom. So Memory Deluge. It's a good thing that that you can deluge in your main phase when you have Teferi, because you're just going to untap your lands anyway. So it feels like a really good use of mana. I have enough mana here now to flashback Memory Deluge if my opponent doesn't do anything good. But instead I Field of Ruin and activate Castle Ardenvale again. Looking back, I probably should have flashed back the Deluge. But that wasn't the path I took. I definitely think I'm going to go, probably go the Memory Deluge route here. So, looking at my hand now, I have Narset and Days Undoing, but I tell you, I am constantly in fear of my opponent maybe having a Leyline Binding, but now my opponent is tapping out. So I know I'll be able to do all of this on my turn. So, let's flash back to Memory Deluge, I guess. Which, looking back, if I knew I was going to Narset plus Days, I should not have done that. Because that's just going to, that would have just been a card I could cycle back into my deck. My opponent's going to make the dude. Okay, I'm a Fateful Absence. So now my opponent just has a Curated, and I have some critters in play. I don't know. I feel like the game should be pretty thoroughly in my control now. So now I Days Undoing. Even though my hand was great, I probably, this is a position where because I got to do this, I was already going to win the game. I think I was just taking game actions because I thought it looked fun. So I definitely don't think that was a lot of discipline from me. But getting the laydown arms, we're picking off the Giganta. I could have ulted Teferi there, but I just wanted to go ahead and plus. I think I should have ulted since I had Teferi in hand, though. Even though that's the card I drew. Never mind. So yeah, no, we're in garbage time. I just need to close the game out. I think in my head I'm playing around Leyline Binding a lot. Because I don't want to activate Hall of Storm Giants, and then, well, never mind. I don't even know why I was playing around that. Leyline Binding hits non-land permanents. So this is an example of me just not. I probably didn't close this game as best as I could, and that's why I'm down to about 14 minutes on the clock here. I really should be doing better, but I counter. So I let the Escape to the Wilds resolve because it doesn't matter. I can counter something if they cast anything. I see my opponent got the Slaughter Games, and I kind of laughed to myself internally because if my opponent Slaughter Games means the game was over anyway, and then I'm just losing time on the clock here. I shouldn't have taken any game actions. I just should have moved to combat. So I probably lose about another 30 seconds on the clock there when I shouldn't have. That's an example, and I will absolutely say to myself that was poor clock management, and that was poor game management in general. I did not have to Days Undoing there. That game was not going anywhere. And I had all the pieces in play to just win. So, in retrospect, maybe I shouldn't. I shouldn't have done that. But that's definitely score one for Days Undoing. In the situation where I actually got to cast it, it was definitely win more and not really what I wanted it to be. But doing it was really cool. I mean, I'll say that for sure. Getting a fresh grip, I liked for sure. Sideboarding, bring in the Mystical Disputes, obviously. I probably bring in more grindy threats. Bring in the Elspeth Sun's Champions. I can bring in the Kitty Cats, but I think that's not necessary. I can really, just bring in Elspeth and Starnheim Unleashed. I just need ways to close the game, especially since I know that I only have 13 minutes left, and that was a really long game one. So I could have brought in Brimaz and Regal Caracal, just knowing that I needed to stick a threat and then end the game. So cutting laydown arms, shaving a few of those, maybe down to one or two, was probably right, since my opponent really didn't have that many creatures on board. Supreme Verdicts weren't necessary, probably didn't need the Farewell either. So all of those kind of cards make room for the grindy threats and ways to close out the game. So let's see how game 2 plays out, and see if I can close this match with 13 and a half minutes. Okay, here, game 2, on the draw. I have 2 lands, and I have changed the equation. I have a Lay Down Arms and a March of Otherworldly Light, and I have a Sincere Faith I will draw a 3rd land. So I keep it. I do draw the 3rd land. Knowing my opponent has a lot of red and green cards, I'm pretty sure I'll get value out of Change the Equation, but then my opponent plays Chrome Host Seed Shark, and I think before they can cast anything else, I should March of Otherworldly Light, which is what I do there. Tap Prairie Stream because I still have a Change the Equation available. If my opponent jams Omnath here, okay, but there's another Chrome Host Seed Shark, which doesn't feel great. Okay, so my opponent has 3 creatures on board, and I can Supreme Verdict. This is 100% the space to jam that in. Yeah, keep it in 1. You should never board out all your sweepers. I feel like that's a quick way to get yourself got. So I feel pretty good here, knowing I have changed the equation up, and my opponent just put Giganta into hand, since Change the Equation counters Giganta. Drawing Starnheim Unleashed probably puts me on a quick path to be able to get out of here. I can currently cast it for X equals 2. Gonna change the equation here in the Omnath. My opponent still has Giganta, hasn't drawn their 5th land. I find a Mystical Dispute, which I like. I'm gonna foretell here, and I can play the Hallowed Fountain tapped, since if I wanted to full price this Mystical Dispute, I can do it. Which still technically gives me the counter I wanted for Giganta. The sequence of draws I had here did feel very fortuitous, I admit. Okay. There was this long pause here that I had to deal with. I think I always have to remind myself that like Moto has a memory leak problem. Okay, so getting my Starnheim Unleashed countered by Dovin's Veto feels real bad, but at least I know that's a Dovin's Veto that they don't have. Elish Norn is not something you want to see, but you know, I probably just spend 4 mana to answer their 5-mana threat. I'm still trading up, so I think it's okay. Giganta is something I don't have an answer for right now. If I draw another Plains, I do. So I'm going to cycle this Shark to find that Plains. And I find it right on time here. So I have the Dispute. I have another Lay Down Arms. I have a Farewell. My opponent has 2 cards in hand. And I know I'm eventually going to draw what I'm looking for. I'm probably just firing off whatever counter spells I need here. Like I should be in the driver's seat. Castle Ardenvale finds me another win condition. I'm making 6 mana here to activate Hall. I'm getting in there. I know I'm down to 8 minutes. I have to start ending the game. I just hope my opponent doesn't put anything into play that matters. And right now, my opponent has exactly that, nothing that matters. So I'm just getting in there. So I mean, Hall. We are on the beatdown plan. I know it was a 4-turn clock. I really maybe could have spent a couple of turns activating Castle Ardenvale, but I'm glad I took the route I did now when my opponent put Tibalt into play. Now, I still had my opponent on a 2-turn clock here, but I knew that I had enough time with my opponent having no cards in hand, and they have my March of Otherworldly Light that they hit on the Tibalt emblem, but I do know that I can keep up Dovin's Veto to counter that March of Otherworldly Light, so I feel good about that. Because my opponent can march for 1 and then pay the ward. I mess up here because I should have made my opponent pay the ward so that they couldn't activate the Bank Buster. That was a pun on my part, but in my head, I'm trying to go Speedy Gonzalez here, and I definitely messed that up. And then because I messed up even farther there, I passed through my main phase, just giving my opponent another turn, and it feels pretty terrible. But my opponent played this Omnath and didn't draw an extra card, so I'm not that mad about it. I'm attacking with the Hall here. I think I could have easily just cycled this Shark Typhoon to have multiple lethal attackers on the following turn. But my opponent's just cycling here, draws nothing, and I get in there. So I punted twice, definitely at least twice there, by not making... I punted twice just in the same turn, by not making my opponent pay the ward, and then by skipping through my combat step. I'm not a Moto expert, and I need to get better about that. But I'm pretty sure I tried to hit OK, and then hit 2, so I just yielded until my opponent gave me priority, and they don't give you back priority for your combat, so I skipped through that. But like the winning against a really grindy matchup feels good as control, and I'm really proud that I managed to close this game in enough time. So I'm 2-1. I have the dream alive of doing better than Nolan's 3-2. So I'm going forward into round 4, and I look forward to seeing y'all there, and we'll see if we get there. All right, here we are with round 4. I won the die roll. Let's see how this game goes. Let's see. So I got Kaheera. My opponent reveals nothing. I have a pretty decent on the play hand. I kept with Days Undoing. I just kind of wanted to lean on Laydown Arms and Shark Typhoon and figured I could get to where I needed to go. But my opponent is on this Mono Red Goblins deck, and I actually just want to take a minute to talk about this Goblins deck. Like, it is so ridiculously fast. Like, I used to just think like a Tarka Red was fast, but I feel like this Goblins deck is not only fast but resilient. Because they like hit War Chief and start doing a bunch of things. They have Runvelt Horde Master, and they have Conspicuous Snoop. Just out of nowhere, they can just put a ton of stuff on the board and run you over, and that there's just so much pressure there. Like I feel like there's a lot of situations where you can think that you have won the game, and then they just put it back to you in an instant. There's a couple of people locally who are doing a really great job with this deck. So it's terrifying, especially when you're on the control side, and especially when you kept the hand I did. So my opponent played this Legion Loyalist, which stinks for me because now I'm not going to be able to block with my Shark Typhoon. So I still end up cycling it for 1, I think, here, because not getting the body is ridiculous, especially since I can block with it later if I get rid of the Legion Loyalist. Still have not. So I'm going to have to play the Wandering Emperor here and hit this Legion Loyalist, just so I can block with my Shark Typhoon. Opponent plays a Horde Master. Everything is bigger than me now. I block one of the ones attacking me just to maintain my life total at a certain height. I should have played the Irrigated Farmland here, I think. But I think I had the idea that I could make disappear. But then my opponent just Skirk Prospectors, sacks, and pays for it, while also putting a bunch of cards into exile. Nothing that I think ended up being relevant, so I cycled. Hitting Field of Ruin, blowing up the Den of the Bugbear. Premature, since I wasn't going to... it wasn't going to be an issue for a while. But now my opponent puts a War Chief into play, and I'm staring at way more damage I'm going to deal with, and I'm going to 2. I have to find Supreme Verdict here. I got nothing. I find Laydown Arms, Ardenvale, still don't draw Supreme Verdict. That game is toast. Like, I thought that I had like a genuine out for a piece of this game, but then they just really throw it on you. And Runvelt Horde Master giving you until the end of your next turn, it's pretty brutal when you're on the other side of that. And even if I drew Supreme Verdict there, my opponent was going to exile 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards. So, I mean, I think it's 6. Remember, Horde Master is... Oh, it counts itself. My opponent was going to exile their top 8 and could just play all their goblins. My opponent still had 3 cards in hand. I was going to die this game. So, I mean, what are things I can bring in? I can bring in Brimaz. I can bring in Temporary Lockdown. Temporary Lockdown kind of stinks when you think about how many 3s they're also going to have in the deck. But you got to bring it in, and then you got to bring in the Brimazes and the Regal Caracals. It stinks that they both make tokens, so if they have Legion Loyalists, you're not going to be able to block with those, but I mean, that's just how it's going to be. But you're going to have to cut things like Teferis. I think I probably went down to 1. Cut all the Narset Days Undoing stuff, and that's just how you're going to have to make room. I think, yeah, and you cut Dovin's Veto, because they don't have non-creature spells. I'm pretty sure this deck has to be like 20 lands, 40 creatures, and burn face with bodies. But this one's going to be uphill, so we'll see how game 2 goes. Okay, so we get to go first, obviously. I have a hand that has Change the Equation, and March of Otherworldly Light, and Make Disappear. So I think I should be able to just kind of keep up with what my opponent's doing here. So go to play Horde Master, I Make Disappear that. All my opponent's cards are red, so change the equation is always going to be live. So that was the correct choice. I draw the temporary lockdown. So in my head, now I just need to draw the white source. That's all I'm thinking about. But I counted the squee here. And then I draw a Supreme Verdict, which isn't where I want to be. So I set up this token here. So then my opponent puts War Chief into Pile Driver, and then plays a Horde Master, and then a Snoop, which my opponent puts Snoop into play. That's when I start pitching things to get rid of the War Chief, so they don't have haste. Then my opponent starts sacking things to Skirk Prospector here, and then eventually finds a Reckless Bushwhacker. Like, I think that I'm alive and can, get through having a creature and a Goblin Pile Driver come to get me. But then Skirk Prospector plus Runevelt Hordemaster plus Conspicuous Snoop, and my opponent just starts chaining down into Reckless Bushwhacker. Missing a land drop there, that stinks. But, my opponent put together one heck of a sequence of top decks, like moving through the Conspicuous Snoop chain. So, you know what? I'm a big fan of Goblins in general, like in every format, but seeing my opponent doing this right here in Pioneer is awesome. But now we get to the sad part, right? I'm 2-2. I can't do better than Nolan. But I have to do at least as good, right? Because I will lose all my credibility if I don't at least get the same record he did on Blue-White. So, see me in round 5. I hope you're pulling for me because, I feel like I need the support because I wanted to have the 3-2 locked up at round 4. But, man, we're going to see how it goes. Okay, we are here with round 5. I won the die roll, so we're definitely starting off where we want to be. Let's see how it goes. Let's see if I can pull out this 3-2. Starting off Island, I know I have the lands. I kind of want to lead on my basics here to see about getting into Prairie Stream. My opponent starts on Mishra's Research Desks. I'm not really sure what I'm looking at here, to be honest. This is not a deck I've actually seen before. But my opponent just starts exiling a bunch of cards, making land drops. I kind of think I'm just going to Field of Ruin here and probably take my opponent off of the last color. But my opponent goes to a place of Healy, so I absorb. So after I see Saheeli, I know I'm against like Jeskai Ascendancy because this is like the 10th Pyromancer effect. I think they use that as like 9 and 10. So it's Young Pyromancer, Monastery Mentor, and then Saheeli. But I go to Field of Ruin my opponent's Hingegate pathway because it's the only white source. And my opponent scoops. So that 100% leads me to believe that they don't have any basics in their deck. So this is where I look at you. I'm looking at you, YouTuber. Play basic lands. Like, when your control opponent, notice they get to also Stone Rain you and not just take you off of a certain land. It is the best feeling ever. And you know what? If you just want to stroke your control opponent's ego, go for it. But put at least one basic land in your deck. It's possible it's in the 6 cards in their hand, but they didn't reveal their hand, so I don't know. But no, that's a rough spot to be in. But I'm playing against a combo deck in round 5. As a control player, I usually feel advantaged against combo. So I think there's a good chance here. I feel good about matching Nolan's records. Let's go to game 2 and see how that's going. I know against Ascendancy combo, I can bring in Mystical Disputes. I believe they're going to be on things like Treasure Cruise, so I can play Narset's Reversal, and then I really don't need much else. Those 3 cards kind of get it done on their own. I know they're going to draw a lot of cards, so Narset's very good still, and I probably, if I can control the game the way I need to, I don't need things like Farewell or Supreme Verdict. So those cards I can kind of cut. Like, you don't really need removal spells as much as you normally would, but the other, like, control cards, absolutely. So, game 2, obviously we're going second. I have 2 lands, and I think it's fine because I'm going to have Make Disappear and double March of Otherworldly Light. Drawing Change the Equation there I think is fine. My opponent plays Mox Amber plus Emery. So I know I don't have anything good going on yet, but I have Changed the Equation and Make Disappear. My opponent plays Ledger Shredder here, which gives me a chance to change the equation. Um, so that's a good use of my change equation there. I still have Make Disappear up. So my opponent goes to cast their Mox Amber. I assume they're just going to cast another Emery, which I think is perfectly fine. They're just filling their graveyard. They put an Ascendancy and a Saheeli into the graveyard, which I feel good about. But I don't have anything good really to do here. I could have Make Disappeared on the Treasure Cruise to make them tap out, but I didn't really see the point in that. Instead, I took the time to March of Otherworldly Light the Emery and figured I could start generating value here. And then I March of Otherworldly Light the Mox Amber. So this is a good chance here for me to make disappear the Ledger Shredder. And now if I draw a land, it's Teferi time. And I didn't draw the land I needed, but I Stone Rained my opponent like I knew I could. So now next turn, it's Teferi time, I hope. My opponent has one blue source up. I'm hoping this is for a Consider that I know about and not for a Spell Pierce. Teferi resolves, so I get to tick up and start doing Teferi things. I have Fateful Absence in hand, so if my opponent goes to jam a creature or planeswalker, I just have an answer now. So this feels pretty good. Philology Archaeologist is a card I like in Pauper a lot, but no, we're seeing this here. So I just deal with the Emery, don't really care about that. My opponent Spell Pierces. No, that came off the Archaeologist, never mind. So I land Narset here, and now my opponent can draw through like their impulse effects, but now nothing else very much. And I have the Mystical Dispute, so I feel good. I'm gonna start scrying. I think I put both of those to the bottom. No, I kept to change the equation on top, which seems fine, right? And now I have, my hand is change the equation, double Mystical Dispute. I'm just gonna wipe their board. Like that's, they have 4 cards in hand. They don't have a good answer for Teferi. They're not drawing extra cards because of Narset. That's just a good spot to be in. So it's a tale. I'm not gonna say it's all this time because it's not always true. But if you're not an A plus B combo deck and you're like an A plus C plus D combo deck, then control usually has an advantage because you have to put too many pieces into play for it to actually work. So we get the 3-2, and I feel good. So I'm gonna see you in the wrap up, and we'll talk about the deck. All right, so we're here for the wrap up. So we beat Bring to Light, we beat Jeskai Ascendancy, and we beat Red White Convoke, which are all matchups that I think in control I'm very favored. We lost to Rakdos mid on. I got absolutely brutalized in that match. I don't. There's not really any excuse. I just got absolutely bodied. And then I lost to Mono Red Goblins, which is I think I'm going to lose that match probably 60% of the time, at least 65. Rakdos is more of a 50-50 matchup, but Goblins absolutely destroyed me. But overall, great news. I at least made my play points back, and I get to save face in front of my teammate because we at least got the same record playing blue-white control. So if you reviewed this video and you liked it, actually leave a like. Actually leave a comment and tell me what you thought. Tell me if you like the format, if you like me talking about these games as they're playing through faster, or do you like to sit there and watch me like scratch my head and like actually like do you want to watch the in the loop content of me thinking about all these decisions? Either way, let me know, and whichever way my audience tells me, I'm going to cater to y'all because I want y'all to enjoy this content. So if you like blue-white control, I hope this is fun for you to watch. My thoughts on this whole list where most of it was really cool. Obviously, it feels powerful to play. Days Undoing was win more. I don't think I would actually register this. The Kitty Cat package was good. I think when I played them, they were very impactful. So I think the only one I actually got to cast was Brimaz. I think Regal Caracal I pitched to a March of Otherworldly Light. So, I mean, it's kind of like the legacy argument. When every blue card pitches to Force, at least, your white cards pitch to March of Otherworldly Light. So I guess that's something to think about. So, once again, circling back, like, comment, subscribe, and I'm Mark with Team Primetime, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.